Hi, my name's Hazem Gaber, and we're going to look at the last chapter, the last project management principle in the standard for project management. So after this, we're going to get right into the actual PMBOK and the actual project management. And see some more stuff. But for now, think about change. So, what is change? Change is the ability to prepare those impacted for the adoption and sustainment of new behaviors and processes required for the transition from the current state to the intended future state. So, a change is something different in the project requirements. Now, we must have a good approach to deal with changes, because changes always happen. Not everybody likes change. Not all your stakeholders want a change, or they want a change and they don't want to pay for it. Too many changes can be bad in a short period of time. So we must be able to engage with our stakeholders in a structured way. And how do we do that? Well, first, we must know that remaining relevant in the business environment is always a challenge. So, we must always be evaluating what we are offering and how it benefits our stakeholders. Changes are important for our success. So, a project manager is always watching for potential changes that could benefit the organization. Because a project is basically always creating something new. So a project is always changing something. Change management is a comprehensive, structured approach for transitioning the organization from a current state to a future state. Now, change management is completely different from a project change control. Project changes are where we are modifying the deliverables in the project. But change in an organization can originate from an internal source, such as the requirement for a new capability or a response to a performance gap. So, a change can also come from an external source. Any type of change involves some adaptability by the group experiencing the change. Now, changes can be implemented by and have consequences for different stakeholders. Enabling stakeholder change is part of facilitating the outcome. So, to enable change in an organization, it can be quite challenging because many people are resistant to change or are risk averse. And some environments might be very conservative. People don't always like change. They want to keep things the way they are. But every business has to adapt, so every business has to change. Just think about your computer. You always have to, IT always has changes. There's always upgrades to the network. There's always upgrades to the technology. There's always updates to the software. Those are changes. People don't like it because they got interrupted, they can't do their work, and they gotta learn a new application. But if they don't, then the organization doesn't perform well. They don't take advantage of new features. They have security risks. So there's always a two-way communication. We have to tell all the people who are affected by the change what the change is and why it's going to benefit them and how it's going to benefit them and why we need it. If they don't listen, then too bad, so sad. They gotta be on board. So project teams and project managers can work with relevant stakeholders to address resistance, fatigue, and change absorption, or to increase the probability that the change will be adopted by or assimilated by customers and recipients. That means they must have buy-in for the change. The benefits should be communicated to all levels of the organization. It's also important to adapt the speed of the change to the change appetite, cost, and ability of the stakeholders to accept the change. If we create too many changes in too short of a time, then there will be change saturation. Even when people have agreement that the change is good for them, they still have to adapt to it. They need time to learn. So if we're upgrading the software, they need time to learn the software. We don't want to upgrade every single application on their computer at the same time, because then they won't be able to do any work. So we must have some activities that reinforce the change as well, to avoid people returning to the initial state. So they won't let them go back to their old software, for example. Now, recognizing and addressing the needs of stakeholders throughout the project lifecycle helps to integrate the resulting change in the project work, making a successful outcome more likely. If you want to know more, we're going to cover this maybe in the next course, which we call Managing Change in Organizations. If you have any questions, please post a comment.